G'day guys, welcome to Wednesday, October the 29th. We're a little bit late this morning, we've had a few errands to run, but we'll get through today's update and see what's on track for the next week or so ahead. So the last 24 to 48 hours, we've seen the peak of that storm system. It looks like it's come through about a day ahead of what I sort of expected. I was expecting to peak around the 29th, but looks like we saw that yesterday and the day before. We saw some quite destructive storms over the last few days down through southeast Queensland. There's been some falls of around 100 mils through the southeast of Queensland, and then up through the Wide Bay, Capricornia, varied falls, anywhere from 10 to 50 odd mils. And those storms extended right up into parts of northeast Queensland. There's been some very gusty storms across areas such as the Atherton Tablelands, some weaker storms extending out to the coast through the Cairns and North Tropical Coast. Same around Townsville there, we've seen 5 to 10 mils in total. There's been some good heavier falls inland. A lot of these areas, there's not a lot of measuring devices. You can see through much of the interior. There's not a lot of data collection going on. So you can sort of go off the satellite imagery of the storms that are being measured to sort of get an indication of what has been occurring. And the general range has been anywhere from 10 to 30 odd mils. There's been some isolated pockets up around 60, but up through the northern interior, those storms have been a little bit lighter on at this stage, 10 to 30 mils in tight bands, due to a lot of the heat that's been building through eastern Queensland over the last 2 weeks. The main concern with this was mostly just damaging the destructive winds, and that's why there's been a little bit less rainfall compared to close to the coast, where you've got that coastal moisture boundary. Down through southeast New South Wales, most of those storms have fallen mostly from the slopes and plains east, and mostly north of the central west slopes and plains, southern tablelands and parts of the northern Illawarra, right up to the border of Queensland. Not a lot of activity over the last few days for the southwest, which is what we're expecting. We're only expecting light showers and mostly coastal activity, Perth around about Esperance. That's been the case as well. And then there's also been those patchy storms up across the top end to top it off. But those storms should begin to increase through middle of November when we go into this bit more of a steady phase. There are mixed model outputs at the moment of these continuing rain bands moving through November. While they're possible, I'm still not banking on them being overly active if they do form, not until that final week of the month. So currently everything does still seem to be on track. We're definitely seeing more widespread moisture than we have been. The recent storms have been mostly through the southern interior, and now we're seeing those traditional November style storms that come in through the Kimberley, through much of Queensland, into northern and eastern New South Wales, and then later on in the week we should see these storms actually building into Victoria. So we need to watch this front coming in from Western Australia at the moment. This will be the next system that brings storms not only through the interior but through into Victoria, parts of South Australia again, and then across the eastern states. And as that tail end moves offshore, we'll see the high pressure ridge build in and push those storms up to the top end of the Kimberley. So yeah, that's about the general wrap up of the satellite and what we're expecting. There'll be a bit of a lull in the east short term before the next phase. We've had a lot of rain now that sort of balanced out some of the temperatures and instability there, so we'll need that to rebuild and get some more volatility in the atmosphere. But we're moving right into that high energy period now, so the 29th to the 5th. Interestingly, Hurricane Melissa, Category 5, one of the strongest hurricanes on record for the oceanic region it's in, has crossed the coast of Jamaica right on the 29th. So I'm going to have a quick look at that just for reference, and then we'll go back to the other models. So this is Hurricane Melissa. The reason I'm bringing this up is because the way that this system developed in terms of timeline and intensity fits our long-range high energy periods from recent weeks. So the last one we had was from the 17th till the 24th. So this system's formed right in the middle of that period. We didn't see much activity until the end of that period, where the system went from a tropical low within 24 to 48 hours, went to a Category 3. It then accelerated to a Category 5, where it stalled off the coast, and then as the 29th kicked over, this area became charged, this landmass became charged and pulled that system right on shore. The system's now crossed Jamaica as a Category 5. It weakened to a Category 4 briefly. Now it's Category 3, moving up towards Cuba, where it will make landfall as a Category 4 before weakening, moving out to the northeast. So while, of course, this isn't anything to do with Australia, it just again shows that these weather periods aren't localised to a specific region in general. They can be located just about anywhere across the globe if you know where to put them. So this is a key reason why our long-range forecast cyclone, specifically these cyclone maps that I do, while they don't pick up these wiggles and turns, because that's not what I'm trying to do, they generally pick up the generation point, the genesis point, generally when they'll intensify, and if landfall can occur, it'll tell you roughly within a day where and when that should occur. So just know this is actually the basis of my work, is surrounding these highly traditionally unpredictable systems, and I find that the stronger they are, the more reliable they are to forecast, believe it or not. It's the tropical lows that are hard to pick because there's no the mechanisms within the system aren't of a high enough magnitude to follow the rules precisely that we have in place for these forecasts. So anyway, that's just a quick takeaway on that. I'm not going to get into the specifics on wind speeds or anything because it's irrelevant to us, but it's just interesting that this is occurring right within our first build-up period to our wetter spring period moving into November. So just know that these weather systems, and this goes for earthquakes, sometimes these volcanoes, people have been following me for a while, know I can do earthquakes, volcanoes and other major natural phenomena that defy the laws of logic. So anyway, with that, we'll go back to our weather outlook and then we'll move forward. So before we go to the models, we'll have a quick look at water vapour because we can just see how current conditions are moving before we then translate the models. It's good to know that the physical conditions on the ground before you jump in the models, because sometimes the upper troughs might not be represented by the latest data sets, blah, 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 blah. So if we go into the final phases, this is Tuesday afternoon moving into this morning. We said those storms and upper trough are moving offshore. So technically we should be moving into a bit of a dry phase now into the northeast, at least for the next few days. But notice there's moisture starting to sink back in from the Indian Ocean. If we go back to the final frames, I'll just pause it. If we go through this, click through, we'll see the storms build in the east Tuesday, clearing out Tuesday afternoon. Those storms we had a lot of severe storms within this. You would have, if you're on the east coast, you'll be well aware of that. So as that trough moves out to the east, we see this next plume of moisture coming in from the Indian Ocean ahead of this upper trough here, and weak frontal system moving onshore for Western Australia. So this will be the next focus of the models. We should see the next rain band building through, the interior of Western Australia to some extent, building through South Australia. But this is the rain that we should see storms in the next few days building into Victoria for those areas who have missed out. This will be around this mid first week of November. So we're in the 29th to the 5th of November. So we should see that first storm band moving in through southern parts of South Australia into Victoria by the 31st, 1st of November, moving across Victoria, and then a secondary system moves through, which is a lot stronger from the 2nd through to the 5th, where that peaks, and then we move into more of a steady phase. But you'll see that in the model, so just be aware of that. There's a bit of a glitch here, but if we can just click out of that. So what we'll see is this first band will be quite shallow and bring some showers and storms through here, but this next band that's moving out here will jack up and pull another moisture source through, which will come right down through the central interior, so sort of what we saw through late October. Storms rebuild right through South Australia, pushing right down to the southeast, so that traditional negative IOD phase of the northwest cloud band. And then as that matures, storms will clear out through Victoria, and they'll start thickening up through eastern New South Wales, right up through eastern Queensland, back up to the top end by around the 5th of November. And that's when we'll see this transition back to this heating phase. There will still be storms through the middle of November, but the next big systems like we've just seen over the last week or so should be that late week 3 into week 4, but we'll have a look at that in the models. So this is the ECMWF 24-hour precip. So this shows how much rain roughly every 24-hour period, and it'll show the progression of these storms. So obviously from 10 p.m. tonight, we'll see the residual storms that have been occurring across the east coast will be largely breaking down. There'll be some isolated severe storms, highly coastal, so Capricornia, parts of the northern Wide Bay, possibly northeast New South Wales, and then patchy storms up through to the peninsula, and the focus of storms will be across the Darwin Daly and possibly the Arnhem and Kimberley region there, as this high pressure system builds and pushes storms up to the northwest. Following that, this is that next front that we're just looking at on water vapour. It's going to bring moisture mostly down through the south initially, but there's a secondary one to follow that closely behind. So you'll see we're clearing out in the east by Thursday night. Generally clear, just some patchy showers and storms on the coast, but nothing significant. A weak cloud band will move across southern parts of across the Eyre Peninsula, parts of the mid-north of South Australia, Murray Lands and the southeast. The heavier falls should be the southeastern districts of South Australia. The northern stuff will be quite patchy. This indicates less than 1 millimetre of rain. This yellow here is up to about 10 mils, and that'll push across Victoria and parts of southern New South Wales. So people from southern New South Wales expect more of the same, where the models are going to tell you you're going to get 10 to 30 mils, but you're not. And you'll notice the cutoff again, like the last rain system, is right pretty much along the border. So southern Riverina, if anything, the far eastern Riverina should see patchy storms into the southwest slopes of New South Wales and into the central tablelands. And that's into Friday. There'll be patchy storms. Most of these are 5 to 10 mils, more showery, sporadic rain than anything, not really much value. Those storms turn severe into Sunday, anywhere from Capricornia to New South Wales mid-north coast, and then storms that rebuild across the Kimberley and Northern Territory. But notice this cloud's now building through South Australia. We've got this high pressure system moving in through the southern ocean, southern Indian Ocean. And what happens next is the more influential period. So there's a bit of an upper trough here, this blue line. It's going to jack up between the high pressure system and the trough that's ahead of it. And it's going to pull this moisture in from the Indian Ocean once again in the next few days. And you see it thickens up quite quickly. So by Sunday night, allow a few hours either side. These are models, they're just numbers. There's always variance in what's going to happen, but quite a widespread cloud band. Anywhere within this, there'll be 10 to 30 plus mils. Very, very patchy nature, convective thunderstorms. So this is only showing 5 to 10 mils, but there will be higher falls, highly localised, very gusty, damaging winds where storms occur due to the heat that's underneath this. Hail risk along the coast where there's added moisture, but generally just gusty winds and patchy showers and storms through the interior. Then that system thickens up through the mid-north, parts of the northwest pastoral, still quite scattered through the central interior, and that moves into the southern northeast pastoral and into the riverlands. So finally we'll see another little burst of rain for the riverlands. Again, 5 to 10 mils. If you're lucky, you might see slightly higher falls. That rain band does thicken up into Monday. So by Monday 10 p.m, we're looking at 10 to 30 mils through the southern northwest pastoral. Flinders, mid-north, Murray Lands, River Loyns, southeastern South Australia into the Mallee, Wimmera and southwest of Victoria. So this is a really good setup. This is more or less what we're looking at in this next major phase that'll build into the second half of November, where we get this rainfall corridor. If you check out the November map, I've got this specific rainfall corridor that'll build through the northeast pastoral, Channel Country, down and directly through this region. So this is a really good precursory signal and something I've talked about before, where you'll see a trend that begins, it's very minor, and then it slowly builds like a bell curve, and you'll get to the peak and then it'll taper off to dry, or it can be the opposite way where it starts wet, peaks as dry and goes back to wet. But this is this key corridor we're looking for this 19th to 24th of November. And with some luck, this will neutralise a lot of these rainfall deficits that have been in place for about 12 months. If you go to the drought maps, this is exactly where these drought anomalies persist. While these won't break the drought, they will seriously improve what has been a tough period. And then on the back end of this you see there's a bit of a low there. On the back end of this upper trough, you get the upper trough wraps around, sort of like how an East Coast low wraps around. It entrains the surface low into the upper low, and you get what's called a vertically stacked system, which turns into a cut-off low. And there is a chance that this happens. So you see the low there then forms over Victoria around the 4th. So remember, this high energy period peaks at the 5th. So this is well and truly in line with that progression of energy cycles, where we should see the secondary peak close to the end of this period. So there's high probability in this. Rainfall totals, while they're good, they're 10 to 50 mils. Some areas will see more, some areas see less, because they're storm-related thunderstorms this time of year. Then that system magically moves offshore by 10 p.m. on the 5th, so the end of that high energy period. And then notice the next rain bands don't do a lot. So this is when we're going to move into that settled phase from week 2 into week 3. So this is about right. So we should see a really good peak around the 5th. Then we'll go into national drying period, heating period, and this is really important that we see this. The longer and hotter it can get prior to this next signal, because the next signal is actually stronger, sort of guarantees that we'll see better rain. But with that comes more extreme weather, more hail risk, more damaging winds or destructive winds, and the heat that builds prior to that will be quite uncomfortable for a lot of places. So just monitor heat-related risks moving through mid-November, and that includes, livestock and things like that. And then prepare for some quite severe storms moving into the later part of November. If you look at the accumulated rainfall for the next week ahead, you can see there is that concentrated rain through the greater southeast of South Australia, across Western Victoria, where there's a lot of dry anomalies. So this is a great signal to see. And those anomalies run right up along the east coast, again, right up to the top end and Kimberley. But notice through the interior, there'll be a lot of patchy storms. Rainfall will be highly variable. There's no guarantees on this rain through here, but this rain that's in this coastal boundary is of high probability. So if we look at this is the 29th to the 5th. I'll just shrink it up a bit. It's easier to see. What we're looking at in this period was the focus of rain from the Kimberley, across the top end, coming in through much of the eastern Queensland, along the coast. So some of this rain's already occurred in the last few days, so there'll probably be higher totals than shown. Wrapping around to that little bit of a cut-off low that we thought was going to spin up over the interior of New South Wales and Victoria, and rain then wrapping back around into much of Victoria and southeastern parts of South Australia. So this is pretty good. This is just one map made on the 6th of June 2025. This isn't a map that gets regenerated every 6 hours by computer models, but this shows that these major weather systems are predetermined. They do occur 99% of the time within a set frequency and a set outcome. And in saying that, we can go to the mid-month feature. We're going to see a general breakdown in activity. While there'll still be some scattered storms through the interior, the focus will be the northwest due to high pressure ridging just pushing heat up to the north. Extremely hot in the west. Focus storms for the northwest top end parts of the peninsula. Plan for a very hot few weeks, especially for the western half of the country. Scattered storms through the east, through the eastern interior, generally dry and clear overall. Nothing exciting. If we go to week 4, this is what we're talking about with this corridor that's starting to develop now, where we're seeing that rain starting to funnel down through South Australia. So if we shrink this down, just so you can see what I'm talking about, close this one. So this is that corridor that I was just talking about. Because this area in the northeast pastoral and to some extent the Channel country still is playing piggy in the middle for this time of year, this is the reason why I expect this focused rain band to come down further west through the central interior of the Northern Territory, Western Queensland, focused right through southeast and South Australia, Western Victoria and parts of Western New South Wales. So all the farmers I know who are in northwest New South Wales and Western New South Wales, this is pretty much your last good chance of the season prior to everything shifting pretty much north of you. So looking at this trend that we're seeing already, I give this high confidence and expect this corridor that you're seeing here to thicken up somewhat. By saying that, it'll extend further north, further east, and possibly further west as well, because these systems have been originating further west than I've initially expected anyway. So we should see more rain through most of South Australia in general, but the focus will be through this corridor that's building up through Western Victoria, indicated by this map. And then once this system migrates to the east, because that's what they do, once this oceanic moisture meets up with the northwest cloud band, we'll see some really intense severe storms, peak of the season, Capricornia south to probably the Hunter. Obviously they'll extend slightly further north, slightly further south, inland of the Darling Downs, northwest slopes and plains, the northern tablelands, those sorts of places. But the focus of that extreme weather, those severe storms we've been seeing over the last few days, will be through that traditional corridor from the Capricornia to the Hunter Valley. Expect giant hail, destructive winds, because it's going to be so hot leading into this, and it's going to be the peak storm event of the year prior to moving to the wet season. So anywhere in this region, eastern New South Wales, eastern Queensland, from the Capricornia down to the Hunter, I won't rule out Sydney, but it might be too far south. Make sure you got hail cover on your car. If you are out, ensure you got somewhere secure to park your car in this last week. So from anywhere from the 19th to the 24th, give or take a day either side. That's your peak window. Very volatile time. And yeah, that goes for those through southern parts of South Australia too. So as this front comes through, there'll be some hail associated with the initial frontal band, but the main rain should be focused through this eastern interior. So far everything looks well and truly on track. Use this as a sign, how this plays out in the next few days, as a sign and for confirmation of what's going to happen at the end of the month. Anyway, that sums it up. Next videos we're going to do a state-by-state breakdown. Some guys have been looking for a little bit more detail in the weekly updates, so I'm going to start doing that every Wednesday. We'll go state by state around the country, zoomed in, so we can see with a bit more detail where these rain bands may or may not cover. Cheers.